welcome to another reading vlog. This week my reading goal is to try to get through two big epic fantasies. So I've got The Golden Key by Jennifer Roberson, Melanie, Rawn and Kate Elliott. I actually started this one a few weeks ago and then I had to put it aside for different reasons. So yesterday, which was Monday, I did reread the prologue, and I'm glad I did because partially it had just been too long, but also I think I picked up a few more things on a second read. Oh, and also I did do a bit more research on this book, so I realized it's broken up into three parts, and the first part is written by Jennifer Roberson, the second part by Melanie, Rawn, and the third part by Kate Elliott. So I'm going to try and kind of treat it as three books, although does that make it less likely that I'll finish it this week? Kind of, because I don't normally read three physical books in a week, but we're going to try and finish it this week. I think each part follows a different character from this family that seems to have some kind of painting magic, but it's so far we're following quite young kids who don't know anything about the magic, but maybe they just found out something about it, and it seems quite dark. It's also set in like ancient Spain, and I really wish I knew some Spanish because I think that would make understanding some of the slang and the insults and that kind of stuff that's thrown in. Sometimes I get a little bit confused, but I think that's just mostly me. Like, you can usually tell within the context what it generally means. But I think the word that they call their magic is sort of formatted the same way as all the names, so I keep thinking they're talking about a person that I don't remember. Anyway, I'll read more of that at some point. Also, I am listening to the audiobook of The Golden Fool, which is the second book in the Tawny Man trilogy, which is the third trilogy of the Realm of the Elderlings series, which I've been working my way through. The first and the third trilogies follow the same characters. So we've got Fitz, who is, well, it's different. When he was young, he was the bastard son of the king in waiting, but things have changed a lot since then. He's now 40-something, and he's come back to the kingdom to try and help the young prince learn how to use his magic. So right now I'm actually going to head over to Jason's, and then we're going to go to town for lunch since we're allowed into town now, and we were kind of interested to see how busy it is in town. So while I drive over there and drive back and do whatever, I will focus on listening to The Golden Fool, and then I guess whenever I get back I'll read some more of The Golden Key. I'll take it to Jason's place, but we know I never read when I'm there, pretty much. So I am back from Jason's house. I just did a massive amount of filming this morning, so I'm not looking forward to editing that, although kind of looking forward to editing that. Let's hope we can turn it into something fun. But I wanted to give you guys a quick update on my reading. So I have read a bit more of The Golden Key. I am up to page 140, which is far behind where I should be today, but that's where we're at. And so far we're just following these two kind of children. I think they're about 16 now. I'm making that up. They did get in trouble and they weren't allowed to see each other for a year, and in that time one of them has learned a lot more about this painting magic that's going on with their family, and we're also just learning a lot more about the political intrigue that's going on because there are these two competing artist families. One of them is currently in favor with the Duke, but the other one does have ducal protection, so their enemy is trying to prove that they have this painting magic and that it's actually dark and evil in order to try and stop them from having ducal protection. But the other family, which is the family these two children come from, is trying to use that painting magic to get back into a position of favor with the Duke. Anyway, I am really enjoying it, and hopefully I can find some more time to make some more progress on this soon. I did also listen to a fair amount of Golden Fool while I was driving around the last couple of days, and I'm really enjoying it. I'm really liking the way that it is touching on grief. So a lot of horrible things happened in the first book in the trilogy, and so now they keep coming back to the grief of that, and I really like the way that it's not just like here's the characters experiencing grief and then we'll never worry about that again. It's like an ongoing thing that keeps coming up, which I think is much more realistic. There's also a part where Fitz's daughter is kind of skilling to him, and it was super cute. I loved it. It made me laugh in the car while I was driving. And we also just had a bit where Fitz performs quite badly in the bedroom with his lady that he is interested in at the moment, and I quite like the way that that was dealt with as well. So I'm really enjoying it, but I do feel like, once again, as is often the case with these books, I still don't feel like I know what the point of this book is. Like, I'm enjoying everything that's happening, but I don't know what's going to happen. And I just know what Robin Hobb tends to do is that she brings all these little things in, and then suddenly they all come together in a way where you're like, oh crap, we're fucked. So I'm looking forward to that. Good morning. So I signed up for a work-related conference thing this morning, and I kind of have regrets because I'm not in the mood, but I'm going to get in the mood, I guess. As far as reading goes, yesterday I didn't read any of The Golden Key. Instead, I had to keep listening to The Golden Fool during my reading time because the characters from the Live Ship Traders series just showed up and blew everything apart. There was a reveal that made me want to reread the Live Ship Traders series because how did I not see that? In fact, I think I guessed it, and then I thought, no, that can't be true, but it is true, and it's just changing everything. Also, there's way more dragons coming into things now, which is super exciting. So I couldn't stop listening, and so I ran out of time for reading this. Also, I only just realized now that both these books start with the golden. Why did it take me so long to realize that? I don't know. Anyway, I'm not sure. Oh my god, my camera's dying. I'm not sure how much reading I'm going to get today because I've got this conference and then Jace is coming around. I really don't know what I'm doing with my life, but the world's a mess. I'm a mess. That's what it is. Hi, so I think that about a week has passed since I last vlogged. I don't know what happened. No, I do know what happened. The world got worse. So I haven't really been posting on my channel because I've just been kind of leaving space for other people's voices. I don't really think that I'm the best person to necessarily be educating other people. I think for me the best thing I can really do to support some of the Black Lives Matter stuff that's going on is like watch more Black booktubers and read more books by Black authors. So I'm going to focus on doing that primarily. But it does turn out that when I'm not posting videos, I don't have the motivation to make videos. So I haven't really been doing any of that. I've also just been focusing a bit on working out what I'm doing with my work situation because I still don't have a job. And there have been some that have been advertised, but none of them have really matched what I'm looking for. So, I mean, I'm not desperate yet. So it's kind of my choice to be still unemployed, and I'm trying to think about other ways that I could make some money in the meantime while I wait for that right job to come along. Because I don't want to just pick a job because I'm desperate and then be stuck doing it for several years and having a terrible time. That's just, I'm lucky enough that I don't need to do that. Not yet. We'll see how it goes. So basically a lot of stuff has been distracting me. Also, the filming I did at the start of last week, I decided to just delete it all. So that was great. I'm going to try and refilm it today. What else has happened since I last talked to you? Books. So I did finish reading The Golden Fool and I really loved it, as expected. As always, some horrible things happen to Fitz and the people around him. And the end of this book has set us up for the third book. So I'm super excited for that third book now because in that third book, we're going to be going on a quest to kill a dragon. And it's all set up so that you're not sure, do you really want this quest to be successful or not? Is the dragon even going to be a real thing when they get there? I think so, but you never know. And there's just a lot of things going on that makes me super excited for that last book. So that was really great. And then because I finished that audiobook, I was like, what audiobook should I listen to next? And when I opened up the BorrowBox app, it suggested to me that maybe I could read A House of Blood and Earth. Is it Other House? The House. one of those. Anyway, by Sarah J. Maas, who I haven't liked a lot of her stuff. I liked some of the earlier Throne of Glass stuff, and then it went sideways. I didn't really like A Court of Thorns and Roses series, but I'm curious, so I picked this one up, and for the first 2 hours I was incredibly bored. Then something exciting happened and I was like, yes, maybe this will be good, and no, then it got really boring again. And what I've realized is that I really like when things are happening in the story, but so much of it is just like this world building being dumped on you, and it's a really interesting world, but I hate the way the world building is done, and I hate all the stuff inside the different characters' heads is just so angsty and over the top and boring, and I don't care. I can see why some people would like it, but it's so not the kind of thing I like. So there's bits in this book that I enjoy, but there's huge bits that I don't. I think so far I'm about 10 hours in, and it's setting up to be this hate to love kind of romance. They are investigating this demon murder, which is really interesting, but we don't get enough of that, in my opinion. Anyway, I will keep listening to that. As well, I have been reading The Golden Key, and last night I did finish the first part, and I do really like it. It is very slow paced, which is maybe part of why I'm taking a while to get through it, but it's not just that, it's also the world and my life. But I am really enjoying it. And also, so each part is like several hundred years apart, and I was expecting that each part would follow a different character. However, things happened in this first part that mean I don't think that's the case anymore, and I'm super excited because what this book has done in the first part has set things up so well for the future parts. So I'm super excited to see where that goes next. As always, I'm going to say I'm going to try and finish that this week. But will I? I've still got quite a bit to go, so we'll see what happens. I'm still trying to do a lot of work stuff and life stuff, and there's always way too much to do. I will also mention briefly that I did have some books turn up in the mail, which is exciting. These are not books that I bought. I can't really afford to buy books at the moment. I've put like a strict ban on myself in terms of spending money that I don't need to spend, because I need to stretch that savings out. But these books I won in different giveaways. So this one I won from a booktuber who's not on booktube anymore, but I do appreciate receiving this book, and I'm super excited to read it because it's like a time travel book. I also got these two from Kat at Brews and Reviews. So we've got The Stone Sky by N.K. Jemisin, which is the last book in this trilogy, so I'm super excited to get to that soon. Hopefully I'm going to be able to fit it into next month's TBR. I also have The Faded Sky, which is the second book in the Lady Astronaut series, and this is another series that I'm super excited to continue. So hopefully I can fit all of these on my TBRs soon. I kind of just want to ditch my June TBR and say this month is a failure and goodbye, but I'm not a quitter, so I'm going to keep pushing through with the pile of books I have to read for June, even though I don't think I'm going to get them all done. So this is now the third week in this weekly vlog. I guess that's what's happening. I did say right at the very beginning that I was going to treat this like 3 books, and I actually think a reasonable pace for me is 1 physical book a week. So finishing this by the end of the week is maybe actually realistic. But also I've just been a bit of a mess, so But I'm getting myself back on track, as you can tell by all the post-it notes up on my wardrobe there. So hopefully I can get through some more reading. This one I am up to the end of the second part. I do think that I like Jennifer Roberson's writing a little bit better than Melanie Rawn's writing, so I liked the first bit better. It was interesting to contrast their writing styles because I've read other things by them before, and I almost wish I hadn't known who had written each part, because it would have been a fun game to see whether I could have lined up their writing styles without knowing who wrote what. Anyway, regardless, I am really enjoying this. I do still think it was quite slow paced. Sometimes Melanie Rawn's writing style is it's like she writes at such a big scale. She doesn't go into a lot of details, although there was still quite a lot of character building. I don't know, it's hard to describe. But some interesting things happened in that part, and again, I'm really excited to see what's going to happen in the final part, because it has just set things up so amazing. And Kate Elliott is a good author, so I'm sure she can do something cool with all the concepts that are set up with this like dark painting magic that's been set up. As well as that, I've also been listening to Crescent City, House of Earth and Blood, Blood and Earth. Why can I never remember which order that goes in? House of Earth and Blood. And the craziest thing is that I'm not hating it. I mean, I don't think it's great literature, and the romance stuff does make me roll my eyes a bit. I'm always really frustrated when they're in the middle of like some very intense demon investigation, but they're also thinking about putting their hands on his cock. Really? Anyway, I know some people like that. Also, there is a bit in this where one of our characters is getting some demon venom pulled out of her thigh wound. Now, I have a scar at the top of my thigh because a few years ago I had a hip infection and they ended up having to cut my hip open and drain it. It was lovely. They actually weren't sure it was a hip infection and they took me into the operating theatre just to like put a needle in and see what came out, and I heard the doctor say, that doesn't look good, which is never what you want to hear the doctor say. So when they were pulling this demon venom out of her, it was very reminiscent of things that have actually happened to me, and I think from now on I'm going to say that that scar on my leg is from when I was attacked by a demon. It's definitely a much more interesting explanation than a random infection that we don't know why. So also though, I'm like 5 hours from the end, and just a little bit before this something happened, and I will say it's something that Sarah J. Maas used quite a lot in Throne of Glass as well, is that Selena would have some big scheme, but you wouldn't find out about it until after the fact, even though you'd been following along with her thoughts. And so you'd be like, well, why didn't she mention that that was her plan when she was like, wouldn't she be thinking about her plan? Why didn't we know about it till after the fact? And then she does the same thing with Bryce when she's trying to like subvert the idea that Bryce is just this stupid party girl, and then she has these schemes and she reveals them, and then Hunt realizes that maybe she's not just a stupid party girl and falls in love with her. I mean, you could call that spoilers, but it's pretty obvious that it's going to happen. However, then she also does it in a way that's like very game-changing. Character knew something that completely changes how you feel about them, but you've been following along with their thoughts, and really they wouldn't think about something that massive. It doesn't make sense, and it really made me feel like I'd missed something and that I needed to go back. So I don't really like that. I don't think actually Sarah J. Maas is an amazing writer. However, I do quite like the world and the way that she's bringing in all sorts of different angels and demons and shapeshifters and fairies, all of that, even though the fae stuff is very typical Sarah J. Maas, fetishizing them. And everybody is beautiful, of course. Anyway, lots of problems, but I still kind of like it. I don't know. I'm probably going to give it 3 stars overall because it's not amazing, but I thought I might hate it, and I didn't, so that's good. Although, I will say I also like Throne of Glass, and by the end of that series, I was completely over it. So I'm somewhat afraid that the series will do the same. Also, I haven't quite finished, so we'll see if it turns me against it before the end. The one other thing that I did read yesterday, because it was going to return itself to the library, was the Sandman Volume 2. I did like this better than the first volume of Sandman, but I still think it had that same problem where there was just a bunch of stuff in there for the aesthetic and it didn't really add anything to the story. There was a whole one comic about, like, had Shakespeare in it, and I didn't care, and I struggled to read that one. And there's also this whole bit with these serial killers where it just was overly gross and kept making jokes in a way that was like, really, you want to make those jokes? I think it just hasn't aged that well. Also, like a few bits where this girl, who's like a relatively young girl, maybe 18, but still, she's framed in the story as a relatively young girl, and there were bits where she was naked in a way that I was like, well, why is she naked? And that, like, one frame even where you got like this really clear view of her butt, but in the next one she was wearing her dress properly. So why did her dress like come up and show you her butt in the frame before? Was that necessary? No, it was not. So I don't know. I liked the main story that was in there, and I do still find the main character Morpheus very interesting, but there's also a lot of problems. Anyway, I am going to go and do some filming in the name of catching up on all my things that I need to do. But I will check in with you again when I've read some more of this, and maybe when I have finished A House of Earth and Blood. I think I've pretty much filmed the whole of this vlog just sitting here like a regular sit-down video, which is not really the point of vlogs. But at the same time, for most of the last 3 weeks, except for the footage where I've showed you of me going outside, it's been really rainy and wintry, and so I have spent a lot of time sitting at my desk. So I still feel like this vlog is pretty representative of my life right now. Anyway, I came on here to update you about Crescent City because I finished it. And you know how I was talking about how she does that thing that one of the characters will have a secret, and then even though you're in their head, you won't hear about it? She did it again in like a really ridiculously massive way. And there were some hints that there was something, and I kind of assumed that there would be something like this, but really? She never thought about it? Really? I hate the way that all of Sarah J. Maas's twists always rely on the fact that this character never thought about this thing, so you didn't know about it. It's just annoying to me. So even though there were some scenes at the end that were like, it was so high action for like 3 hours at the end of the audiobook, it was like high action and like very intense. Although it kind of cracked me up because a lot of the time it was clearly trying to make me think that somebody was going to die, and like as if they're going to die in the first book. Like really? Anyway, the action was still really good, and I have to say the audiobook narrator does an amazing job. So if you're at all interested in this book but also slightly hesitant like I was, I would definitely recommend the audiobook because the narration is just really on the ball as far as expressing exactly what I think Sarah J. Maas was going for. Anyway, overall I think I'm going to give it 3 stars just because even though there were some bits that I really loved, I just think there's some parts of the way that Sarah J. Maas writes things that are just not something I enjoy at all. I can definitely see why a lot of people are giving this 5 stars. I feel like it could have been 5 stars if she just fixed some of those dumb things. But never mind. Then as far as the Golden Key goes, I haven't read that much more, but I have got into the story a little bit to know that in this generation, it's kind of different than the previous ones because the royal family, the Duke's family, in this one, the Duke is not a good Duke, whereas in the rest he was always a good Duke, but in this one, the people are rioting and it's obviously not very good. And so we always kind of start with the children of the family, and the children are kind of figuring out that maybe their parents are not what they thought, and maybe each other are not what they thought, and we're the whole time waiting to see the character that's been the whole way through this. What is he gonna do? Also, because he's been living like throughout all these hundreds of years, it's really funny the way that like the style of painting is changing, and he thinks it's terrible and wants to take things back to the more traditional way that things were like when he was younger, even though some of the way that things have changed are actually because of his influence, but then in the times where he hasn't been around, it's gone off in a direction that he doesn't approve of. And it's kind of funny to think about what it would be like if you lived for 1,000 years, say. You probably wouldn't approve of all the changes to society, even though a lot of those changes wouldn't necessarily be bad. Anyway, I'm kind of enjoying it, so hopefully I can get through some more, but we'll see. I've got too many things to do, as always. Okay, so it is the end, I think, of this vlog, finally. Was it a normal vlog? No. Was it a good vlog? Debatable, but I did read some good books. So I finished off The Golden Fool by Robin Hobb, and I really loved that. I finished off Crescent City, A House of Earth and Blood by Sarah J. Maas, and I really enjoyed that. Surprisingly, it has some massive problems, but I enjoyed it. And then I finally finished off last night The Golden Key by Jennifer Roberson, Melanie Rawn, and Kate Elliott. And I really liked it. I'm actually really sad because there is a prequel story to this by Melanie Rawn called The Diviner. And so I probably will track that down and read that. But there was supposed to be 2 more books written based off this. And I think I know which stories they would tell. The plan was that Jennifer Roberson would write one and Kate Elliott would write another one. But they've never happened. And I'm really sad because I would love to get more stories in this world. Because the magic is just so cool. And the things that happen, like every generation, the way the magic is used is more and more extreme. Obviously, as each part is written by a different author, the writing style just changed through the series, so it's a bit inconsistent in that respect. It's 1,000 pages, so there were definitely some parts that I liked more than others, but overall, I really enjoyed reading this. I'm annoyed that it took me like most of the month to read it, but I did really enjoy the reading experience overall. I expect that this is probably a hard book to get your hands on these days, but if you do happen to see it, I do think it is worth giving it a read. If you find the idea of painting magic interesting, which I am. And like now that I know the whole story, like looking at this cover, I know exactly what's going on. Whereas when I first looked at the cover, I was just like, oh, I don't know, a random guy standing there with a book. But there is a lot more on this cover than you first notice. So, I was going to say that was my reading week, but that was my reading 3 weeks. Next week, I will attempt to get my reading vlogs a little bit more on track. But thank you for sticking with me. I hope that everything's going well with you and that your reading is going better than mine. And I will see you next time.